Hi, welcome back to Balance and Flow. These are the conversations to gain harmony and healing and enable us all to thrive in these uncertain times. My name is Jenny DuFresne. I'm the founder of Balance and Flow, and I'm just really grateful to be here today with my amazing guest, Tashira Halyard. She is like totally fantastic. So she is, first of all, my friend, which I'm very grateful for and I love. But she's more than that. She's an attorney. She's a lifestyle blogger that really has some amazing things to share. She's a freedom fighter. She's a cancer slayer. She's an amazing fiance. She's an amazing mom to a really cute dog. She's so many different things, but most importantly, she is someone who is really, in my opinion, transforming people's lives through the practice of happiness. And so, Tashira, welcome to Balance and Flow.
Hey girl, hey. Beautiful space.
I am so excited to get to talk to you and explore so many things. All of the titles that I talked about are really the lived experiences that you've had. And so one of the first things that I want to share with folks is how we became friends. So this is the power of Airbnb and the power of just finding joy in these experiences that we now have in this kind of our world where we share space with people that we don't necessarily know, but we can also create opportunities and friendships. So that's how we connected. We had some really fantastic conversations, which I always remember as these amazing conversations that we had to begin. So thank you for your gift of friendship. Thank you for just being really a radiant light in the world. So happiness. Tell me where happiness came from, why it became so important in your life, and why you like to share and engage other people, and especially women, in the practice of happiness.
Yeah, good question. So I am really transparent about my story, Jenny. When I was 33, I had a really difficult time with fibroid tumors. So folks who don't know, these are non-cancerous tumors that are in your uterus, and it can really make life difficult as far as your just reproductive processes, like your menstrual cycle, the ability to have children, etc. And I had fibroids for years, and they just got to a really bad point where I had multiple surgeries to try to remove them, both non-invasively and invasively. And finally, the doctor looked at me and she just said, the way that we can stop everything that your body is going through right now, which was massive bleeding, is by just having a hysterectomy. And so the Happiness Project started in a time where I was direct opposite. I was in a space of a lot of self-pity. As far as society is concerned, to be a woman, because I decided to have the hysterectomy at 33 with no biological children. And so I found Gretchen Rubin's book called The Happiness Project, and reading it really just sparked a light bulb in my head. But she and I are very different people, you know. A wealthy woman in New York who dedicated a year to her joy, and I was like, I ain't got a year, like right now, from this very invasive and traumatic surgery, and I need to tap into something different right now. And so I decided to take some of her principles, merge them with my own, and I started a 21-day happiness project. And I really feel like, Jenny, it saved my life, especially because not even a year later, I ended up being diagnosed with breast cancer. And so both of those moments have always been back-ended by this project that I was going through to really pull myself up out of the depths of what could have been despair and depression.
I think it's really, and thank you, because one of the things, I didn't realize we are going to jump right into it, but it is part of what I think is really powerful about your presence in the world, and how you've taken something that as a woman is very traumatic, obviously, having to reconcile and manage what's going on with your body, and then really having to come to the decision to have a really traumatic surgery, right? Which obviously then, it means that your ability, if you desire to have children, is come to an end, right? So it's an artificial end to that. So that, and I know that there are, I'm sure, many women who may be listening to this who have had the same path, right? Have had the same trajectory. And some may not have had the, I call it wherewithal, to think, how do I take this and really almost use it to my advantage, meaning give myself the create the mindset that is necessary to be able to still walk, get up every day, put a smile on my face, and go into the world. Can you talk to us a little bit about, so cancer diagnosis, that's happened twice, is that correct, if I remember correctly, your story?
Cancer diagnosis once, but it was while my mother was also treating cancer.
Right, that's right. So there's also, and again, because I think in this time of a global pandemic, that is, we've had people who have transitioned as a result of it, but we also have just the effects of people having to figure out, what do I do with my family members? I can't see my family members. And so at the same time you were diagnosed, if I remember correctly, your mother was also going through chemotherapy. Can you just give a little bit of light of that?
That was probably one of the most trying times for my family, because I am a third generation breast cancer survivor. So my grandmother had breast cancer, the same type I had, estrogen driven cancer, when I was in college. And then my mother, while she was visiting me to help me heal from my hysterectomy, confided in me that she had felt a lump in her breast. Mm-hmm. So this was really like back to back to back medical crises, honestly. Mm-hmm. So while I'm healing, mother then goes to the doctor. We find out she has cancer. She, boom, goes immediately into treatment. We're at the end of her treatment when I find a lump in my breast, and then boom, I go into treatment. So we literally both treated at the same place, and we would like bookend our appointments with one another. So we see the same doctors just a few hours apart, just to be on kind of a very similar treatment regimen, and just have her doctors to be aware of our family history and to treat me at the same time did give me a lot of comfort. But that's not the kind of comfort I think anybody ever would want, because it's such a bizarre circumstance.
Right. I remember when that was happening. Yeah, I remember that when that was happening. I was like, what?
Exactly. I mean, and at my age too, one of the difficult parts about it is that nobody believed me. I remember people just being like, oh, you're fine. It's nothing major. It's okay. To the point where it took over a month to get my diagnosis, because everybody was dragging their feet around it. My primary care physician didn't take it very seriously. She drug her feet on her referral. And then the radiologist was like, oh, you're fine. And then when I got the call that I had cancer, the radiologist said, okay, well, we did find a little bit of cancer. And I will never forget that, because like, either you got cancer or you don't. Or
you don't, right? It's not like you have this much or you just have this much. No, it's just you have it.
You just got it.
Right.
I still had to go through treatment, although I was stage 1, thank God. I still had to go through the lumpectomy. I still had to go through chemotherapy, because my cancer had a very high rate of return, and I still had to go through radiation. So this took probably about 8 months of my life, just trying to treat this disease.
And I think and I'm again grateful that you're sharing this. One, self-checks are important, critical and necessary. Being able to have access to quality and affordable health care is necessary, particularly in communities of color. As we know, it is even more necessary, because we tend to get undertreated and underbelieved. And for those people in the medical profession who might be listening, it's also really important to believe people, no matter the age, right? So those are really key pieces. I think the thing that's so powerful to me is your work, your personal work, because this, if anyone listening can imagine having a diagnosis, first of all, having to have a hysterectomy, I think that tends to be very common, unfortunately, right at young ages. But then being diagnosed with breast cancer and also having a family history, having a parent, in your case, a mother who was at the same time. So I think all of these things really affect your psyche, really affect your spirit. And so you put yourself on this happiness path. What was difficult? Like, what kind of work did you have to do internally to be able to even go, you know what? I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do it consistently because I know it works. Like, I think we often start a path, and say, yes, I got to do this because this is really going to work, right? We have that sort of momentary explosion of euphoria around this really is going to be the thing that's going to help me. But what was the work you had to do, Tashira, to make it a consistent practice, make it something that you got up and did, maybe not every day, but you got up and did it with a level of regularity and consistency?
Yeah. I think the first thing is, in both cases, is that I had to make a commitment to myself that I was going to win, period. Mm-hmm. On period. There was no other choice for me that I was going to beat cancer and that I was going to get on the other side of my hysterectomy well, in all of the ways, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And so once I made that commitment to myself, and you introduced me to the term, Jenny, soul contract, right?
Yeah.
Once I made that contract with myself and with a higher power, I knew that what my responsibility was then was to put things in place to put me on that path. And I am a very task-driven person. I'm a bullet journaler. I live by a checklist and a to-do list. And so all I got to do is have some homework or an assignment, and my brain goes into overdrive to get that thing done. And so for me, my ultimate task was healing. And the Happiness Project, the 21-Day Happiness Project, helped me to achieve that goal of healing myself holistically. And it all started once again with the commitment. And I have to really give a shout out to my community as well. People showed up for me in ways that I did not even know existed. Almost every day I was receiving a phone call, a text message, a social media message, a card in the mail, a friend dropping by. And so when community shows up and shows out, I had to do my part as well. I wasn't going to languish in bed when people were literally knocking at my door saying, girl, you good? I'm here for you to stand in intercession. And so healing was just my part. It was my part that God commanded me to do and that my community supported me to do. And when I had my path laid out, I just followed the steps.
I think that's really, again, for the time that we're in, and Balance and Flow is all about a conversation about healing, harmony, and what does it take to thrive in uncertain times. And so, going through chemotherapy and all of that process, that there is a level of uncertainty. Yes, there's a mindset that says, I'm going to slay cancer. And if you've never had chemotherapy, I've never had chemotherapy. So the uncertainty of what is this chemical that's going to be introduced to my body, or what is radiation, or do I have to have, I remember you had to have surgeries and you were trying to figure out, what. So there's a lot of uncertainty, which is, again, the environment that we're in right now. There is a lot of uncertainty for many people on the planet. And two things that I heard you say. One is your own personal commitment to kind of elevating your mindset, elevating your spirit, elevating this whole process. But the second is, and this is really important, especially now, is that community. The power of a phone call, the power of people checking in on us, the power of just a hey, you good? You need anything? That is really powerful, and it's something that's important for all of us to kind of maybe sit down look through our phones, who have I not sent a text to or not made a phone call to, or because obviously we have a lot of physical distancing that we need to be doing, but reaching out and building that community is important. So you're in a relationship when I believe all of these things were happening. Can you talk about so you started creating the 21-day happiness project, right? So you created that, and you started following that and working that. At what point, or was this a couples activity, or was this really your own your own thing that you had to do for yourself to get yourself to a particular place in your mind and in your spirit?
Both and. Speaking of my partner, she has decided to put the puppy into
Thank you, Andre.
I'll be right back.
All right. So the puppy's been banished to the next room. So you were saying that you were talking about, or I was talking about did the Happiness Project embrace your relationship like it was? Was it a process that you guys did as a couple initially, or was it really a process that you started on your own to kind of get your mind and spirit and body aligned with the energy of happiness and the elevation of happiness?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I never thought about it this way, Jenny, but I think it's actually both in some ways. So I had to focus on me in order to focus on us.
Right.
I had to put that time, energy, and attention into myself so that I could show up as a better partner to her.
Mm-hmm.
Ray is incredibly supportive and, has selflessly been there with me through all of these ups and downs and transitions as far as my health is concerned, and I could not be more grateful. And I remember there was a time when I was trying to push her away. We were just bickering nonstop, and we just could not get on the same page. And I remember asking her to leave, and it was a friend who was like, "Do you think maybe you're pushing her away because you're not in a good space mentally around your diagnosis?" And it was like a light bulb just went off on my head. And so again, there goes another layer of introspection and work that I had to do in order to show up better for her. So that's kind of one level and one way that I'll answer that question. The other thing is, very specifically, the 21-Day Happiness Project asks people, what's one thing you can do for you and your joy every single day for 21 days in order to build a habit around self-care practices? And spending time with Ray is always on that list for me, because not only is she my fiance, my partner, but she's also my best friend. And so, I get to be very intentional about us doing things together. Having a Netflix and chill night is great. But when we become kind of sedentary and in this routine where we're not being mindful of each other, and you actually told me this before, Jenny, you were like, Tashira, you got a lot going on. How are you giving that time to Ray as well?
Yeah.
And so, it has forced me to be much more intentional about how I lift her up in my life.
And that's awesome. And because I think sometimes we can also go, and I call it picking lint out of our belly button, right? We can become so introspective that we eliminate we sort of focus in on ourselves so much that we can leave our partners, spouses, husbands, wives, we can leave them by the wayside. But I also know that we have to get ourselves balanced internally before we can be of good service, if you will, or to be a good partner or wife or husband to whoever we're in relationship with, or even our children, in my case. So the happiness, I was just thinking, what is happiness? I know we talk about it, and I remember reading the book. What has it done for you? An intentional practice of cultivating happiness, of creating happiness, of being happy. what is it? What is some tangible, like, what is it meant for you? What's that experience of it? What is, like, how would you express it to someone? Like, this is what it means for me to be happy. For Tashira be happy, it means this. Feels like this.
Yeah, it means being fearless.
Mm.
And it means being fearless in how I show up in the world authentically in all my ways. Those ways that I think people will love and enjoy, and those ways that people will not. It means celebrating myself daily and, pouring into myself as far as what it means to be a Black woman with dark skin and nappy hair and a white nose in this world. While society says all of these things make me less than or not as good as, actively working against that conditioning and any of that internalized depression. It also means on days when I'm not feeling it, allowing myself not to feel it. I remember last week I went to work and I was just really down, and I couldn't put my finger on why I was down, but I was not feeling it, Jenny. And my coworker asked me, he was like, "Are you okay? It's all good, everything good?" And I said, "You know what? I'm just not feeling it today, and I'm not sure why." How my self-care showed up in a real way, because I could verbalize, right, how I was feeling emotionally. I recognized that it may not have felt good for people in my presence, but at the same time, I didn't care, because I knew that I needed that space to affirm myself, and that I get to feel all the feels and all the emotions. And so I often say that if we didn't know pain, we wouldn't know joy. If we didn't know anxiety, we wouldn't know peace. And so joy means to me, and happiness means to me, like, and just embracing it all and granting myself permission to just show up as I am. And you talk a lot about social media, and I realize that the moments when I just show up as I am is when I get the feedback and the connection with my audience and with people in real time. I don't have to hold back who I am, because I think when someone can say, "Oh, you too, you went through a hysterectomy,
I
had a parent who went through cancer too," is when those real connections are made. And so, girl, I just show up.
Right. Yeah, you do. You do. And I love it. You do. So we're coming to the close of this, but we have so much, like, we haven't even scratched the surface. Happiness is important. All the amazing, I think, epiphanies that came out of happiness. And I think in some ways, turning what inspires me about you and your story is that you took things that, health and life, like, you took those, and instead of kind of being silenced by them or being shrunken by them, they actually were the flowering of you. And I think the tapping into, the real true meaning in some ways of living. And it is to live happy. It is to live whole. It doesn't mean it's going to look perfect and sexy and it's just going to snap your fingers and I'm going to be happy and joyous. Like, that's not how it works. But it is a consistent practice of developing happiness, developing wholeness, developing joy. And so what I'd love to have us do is to have a second conversation about some other really critical things that I love, that you show up in the world. One is a freedom fighter for Black Lives Matter. I think a freedom fighter for women's lives matter, which is my twist on some of the things that I see you do. Also talk about the Joy Lounge and talk about your experience in this world of fashion, interior design, politics, and all these juicy, groovy things that you also have in your world. So I'd love you to come back and do a second episode where we talk about and delve into those really juicy things that I think just give so much life and vibrancy to the people that I know that you get to interact with. So would you come back?
Absolutely.
Yay! Fantastic. All right, Tashira, I will connect again soon. Take care.